Brad Pitt. For decades, that name meant movie stardom, red carpets, and a face the world couldn't stop looking at. He was the definition of Hollywood's golden man. Talented, admired, and seemingly living the dream. But today, Brad Pitt is 62. And the truth about his life now is far more complicated than most people realize. After the headlines slow down, and after life takes turns no one expects. From the outside, Brad Pitt still looks like a Hollywood legend. But behind that image, his life at 62 carries pain, reflection, and a reality that's much harder than many fans imagine. If you followed his career, if you grew up watching his movies, or if you still admire the man he's been on screen for decades, take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Long before the awards, the mansions, and the global fame, Brad Pitt was just a young man from Springfield, Missouri. He grew up in a traditional household, raised with structure and expectations. His father ran a trucking company, and his mother worked as a school counselor. It was a normal American upbringing, the kind that didn't hint at global stardom. In college, he studied journalism and advertising. Acting wasn't supposed to be his life. But somewhere along the way, he realized he wanted something different. Something bigger. So he did something bold. He left college just weeks before graduation and drove to Los Angeles with a simple goal: try acting. In the beginning, it wasn't glamorous. He took small roles. Commercials. Tiny TV appearances. Background parts that barely paid. He struggled, like most young actors do. But Brad Pitt had something Hollywood couldn't ignore. It wasn't just his looks, though that certainly helped. It was a presence. A quiet intensity. A natural charisma. Then came Thelma and Louise in 1991. That one role changed everything. He was only on screen briefly, but audiences noticed him instantly. Overnight, he became the face everyone was talking about. Casting directors saw potential. Studios saw a future star. The 90s became his decade. Films like A River Runs Through It, Legends of the Fall, Say Seven An, and Fight Club turned him into more than just a heartthrob. He proved he could act, really act. He wasn't just a pretty face. He was layered, unpredictable, and committed. By the early 2000s, Brad Pitt wasn't just famous. He was one of the most recognizable men in the world. But fame comes with a price. As his career grew, so did the expectations. Every role mattered. Every appearance was analyzed. Every relationship became headline news. From the outside, his life looked perfect. But inside, the pressure was building. He later admitted that during the peak of his early fame, he felt lost. He was working constantly, living fast, trying to keep up with the image people expected him to maintain. Hollywood celebrated him, but it also trapped him. There's a strange loneliness that comes with global fame. You're surrounded by people, yet often feel completely alone. Brad Pitt was becoming a superstar, but he was also becoming a symbol. And symbols don't get to be human very often. By his late 30s and early 40s, he had achieved what most actors only dream of. Money, awards, recognition, A-list status. But the foundation of his life, relationships, identity, and emotional stability, was still evolving. And in some ways, still fragile. At the height of his success, he seemed unstoppable. But life has a way of changing direction. The golden boy of Hollywood would soon face challenges that no amount of fame could protect him from. By the time Brad Pitt entered his 40s, he had everything Hollywood could offer. But success doesn't always bring peace. In interviews years later, he admitted that fame sometimes felt like a mask he couldn't remove. Everywhere he went, people expected him to be Brad Pitt, the confident, charming movie star. There was little room to just be human. He began questioning his life, his purpose, his happiness. He worked non-stop, moving from one film set to another. Awards and praise kept coming, but internally he felt disconnected. It's something many celebrities experience but rarely admit publicly. There's a moment in life when success stops feeling exciting and starts feeling heavy. For Brad Pitt, that moment came quietly. He had built an empire, but he wasn't sure it made him fulfilled. At the same time, the media followed his every move. His relationships became global news. His personal life became public property. The more famous he became, the less private he felt. He later described feeling like he was living on autopilot. Working, traveling, smiling for cameras, repeating the cycle. From the outside, he had it all. From the inside, he felt something missing. And this emotional weight would eventually spill into his personal life, shaping decisions that would affect him for years to come. The pressure to maintain perfection, to be the ideal actor, partner, and public figure, became overwhelming. And as the years passed, that pressure began to crack. The world still saw a movie star. But behind the scenes, Brad Pitt was starting to struggle with identity, happiness, and direction. Those struggles would soon become impossible to ignore. Brad Pitt's love life has always been part of his public image, whether he wanted it to be or not. For years, his relationships weren't just personal, they were global headlines. Every smile, every photo, every breakup became a story the world consumed. In the late 1990s, when he married Jennifer Aniston, they were seen as Hollywood's perfect couple. Two stars at the peak of their careers. Charming, successful, admired. For fans, they represented stability in an industry known for chaos. But even then, the pressure was enormous. Their marriage lived under a microscope. Interviews constantly asked about children, their future, their careers. Cameras followed them everywhere. Every public appearance was analyzed. From the outside, everything looked perfect. From the inside, life was more complicated. Brad later admitted that during that period, he struggled with dissatisfaction and restlessness. He felt unsure about himself and about what he wanted from life. He wasn't fully present in the marriage, and he knew it. When their relationship ended in 2005, the public reaction was intense. People didn't just see a breakup, they saw the end of a Hollywood fairy tale. And because it happened around the time he grew close to Angelina Jolie while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the narrative became even more dramatic. The media storm that followed was relentless. Suddenly, Brad Pitt wasn't just an actor. He was a headline, a symbol of scandal, a subject of debate. For years, he and Angelina Jolie became one of the most watched couples in the world. They built a life together quickly. Children, travel, humanitarian work. A large family that seemed, from the outside, full of purpose and love. For a while, it worked. But living under constant public attention takes a toll. Every disagreement, every rumor, every moment of tension becomes magnified. Privacy disappears. Mistakes feel larger. Pressure builds quietly over time. Brad and Angelina eventually married in 2014 after years together. Many thought this meant stability had finally arrived. But only 2 years later, everything fell apart. The divorce in 2016 wasn't just a private separation. It was a global headline that followed him for years. Custody battles, legal disputes, painful public statements. All of it played out in front of the world. For Brad Pitt, the end of that relationship wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of one of the most difficult periods of his life. He went from being part of a large family to suddenly facing silence and distance. He went from public admiration to public scrutiny. He went from stability to uncertainty. And for a man who had spent decades being admired by millions, the personal loss felt deeply isolating. Love had once seemed like the one area of life that grounded him. But by his late 50s, even that foundation had shifted. What remained was a man trying to understand where everything had gone wrong, and how to rebuild a life that suddenly felt much quieter. The years following Brad Pitt's divorce from Angelina Jolie were some of the most emotionally difficult of his life. Divorce is painful for anyone. But when it happens publicly, with legal battles, media coverage, and constant speculation, the emotional weight becomes even heavier. Suddenly, Brad wasn't just dealing with the end of a marriage. He was dealing with distance from his children, legal complexities, and a reputation that felt under constant examination. He later spoke openly about how that period forced him to confront himself in ways he never had before. He described feeling broken, ashamed, and unsure of how to move forward. For someone who had spent decades surrounded by film crews, friends, and family, the silence of that period was difficult. His home felt emptier. His days felt slower. The routines that once filled his life were gone. Isolation can hit hardest when life changes suddenly. Brad began spending more time alone. He focused on work, therapy, and self-reflection. He spoke about attending support groups and trying to rebuild his emotional stability step by step. Fame didn't protect him from loneliness. Money didn't shield him from regret. Success didn't prevent emotional pain. The custody situation with his children remained complicated and emotionally sensitive. For a father who had once lived in a busy household filled with activity, the distance was deeply felt. He rarely spoke publicly about the details, choosing instead to keep those matters private. But in the few moments he did share, it was clear that fatherhood remained one of the most important parts of his identity. And that made the separation even harder. In interviews, he described that time as a period of waking up. He realized he had to take responsibility for his actions, his habits, and his emotional health. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For the first time in years, he wasn't playing a role on screen. He was facing himself off-screen. Those years changed him. They slowed him down. They forced him to look inward. By the time he reached his early 60s, Brad Pitt was no longer the man he had been in his 30s or 40s. The energy was different. The priorities had shifted. He was no longer chasing the same things. He was trying to rebuild something quieter, something more honest. But healing takes time. And even at 62, some wounds don't disappear completely. One of the most significant changes in Brad Pitt's life came when he confronted his relationship with alcohol. For years, he had lived a fast-paced Hollywood lifestyle. Parties, film sets, travel, and long nights were part of the routine. Drinking was common in that environment. But over time, it became something more serious. After his divorce, he admitted that alcohol had become a problem. He described using it as a way to cope, a way to avoid feelings he didn't want to face. But eventually, he realized he couldn't continue that way. He made the decision to get sober. That decision wasn't easy. Sobriety requires honesty, discipline, and vulnerability. It means facing emotions without distraction. It means accepting responsibility. Brad began attending support groups and therapy sessions. He spoke about how those meetings gave him a space where he could be just another person, not a movie star, just a man trying to improve. He later said that those experiences helped him understand himself more deeply than ever before. He learned to listen, to reflect, to accept mistakes. Regret became part of that process. He spoke openly about wishing he had handled certain parts of his life differently, wishing he had been more present, wishing he had made better choices at certain moments. But regret, when faced honestly, can also become a turning point. Instead of running from his past, he began to acknowledge it. Instead of hiding from mistakes, he tried to learn from them. Sobriety changed his routine. It changed his social life. It changed how he spent his time. He became quieter, more reflective, more focused on personal growth. At 62, he isn't the same man he was decades ago. The lifestyle is slower. The priorities are different. The energy is more grounded. But sobriety doesn't erase pain. It simply makes it clearer. And sometimes, clarity can be difficult to live with. Still, he continues moving forward, one day at a time, trying to build a life that feels more stable, more honest, and more meaningful than before. Aging is something no one escapes, not even Hollywood's most iconic stars. For Brad Pitt, turning 62 has brought a new awareness of time, health, and physical change. He still appears on screen, still works, still attends events. But the pace is different now. The film schedules are more selective. The energy is more measured. The recovery time from long shoots takes longer. He has spoken about the importance of maintaining his health, staying active, and taking care of himself. But like anyone in their 60s, he feels the effects of time. The body changes. The mind reflects more. The priorities shift. There's a quieter rhythm to his life now. Fewer late nights. More time spent at home. More attention to physical and mental well-being. Hollywood often celebrates youth. But aging in the public eye comes with its own challenges. Every wrinkle becomes a headline. Every appearance becomes a comparison to the past. For someone who was once labeled the most handsome man in the world, aging publicly can feel strange. The world remembers the younger version of you, sometimes more than the person you are now. But Brad seems to have accepted this stage of life with a mix of humility and realism. He still works on films. He still produces projects. He still creates. But he also spends more time reflecting on what truly matters. At 62, life isn't about proving anything anymore. It's about maintaining balance, protecting peace, and making the most of the years ahead. The spotlight may still shine on him, but the way he lives within that light has changed. He's no longer chasing youth. He's learning to live with time. From the outside, Brad Pitt's life still looks glamorous. He attends premieres. He works on major films. He lives in beautiful homes. But behind that image, his daily life is much quieter than people imagine. He spends time on creative hobbies like architecture, design, and art. He has spoken about finding comfort in building things, creating spaces, and working with his hands. These activities give him a sense of calm that Hollywood never did. His circle is smaller now. Fewer parties. Fewer public appearances. More time spent with close friends and collaborators. There's a certain solitude that comes with this stage of life. Not necessarily loneliness, but a quieter existence. A slower pace. A different kind of fulfillment. He's no longer trying to be everywhere. He's no longer trying to please everyone. He's focusing on what feels meaningful. Sometimes, that means spending evenings at home, working on projects, listening to music, reflecting. The glamour is still there when cameras are around. But when they leave, life becomes much simpler. And perhaps that simplicity is something he values now more than ever. One of the most sensitive parts of Brad Pitt's life today involves his relationship with his children. Fatherhood has always been central to his identity. During the years when his family lived together, he often spoke about how important being a father was to him. It grounded him, gave him purpose. But after the divorce, things changed. Distance, legal complexities, and personal challenges created emotional strain. For any parent, separation from children can be deeply painful. For someone living under public scrutiny, it becomes even more difficult. He has rarely spoken in detail about the situation, choosing to keep it private out of respect. But in the few moments he has opened up, it's clear that fatherhood remains one of the most emotional parts of his life. At 62, he reflects on those relationships with a mix of hope and sadness. Hope for connection. Sadness for lost time. A desire to move forward, even if the path isn't always clear. Being a parent doesn't end when children grow up. If anything, the emotional impact becomes deeper. He continues trying to show up, to grow, and to be better. But some things in life don't have easy resolutions. And that reality is part of what makes this stage of his life feel so heavy at times. At 62, Brad Pitt is no longer the young actor who arrived in Hollywood with big dreams and endless energy. He's lived through fame, love, loss, mistakes, and reinvention. He's experienced the highest highs and some very public lows. And through it all, he's continued moving forward. Today, he lives a quieter life. A more reflective life. A life shaped by lessons learned over decades. He still works in film, both in front of and behind the camera. He still creates. Still explores. Still tries to grow. But the urgency of youth has been replaced by patience. He understands time differently now. There's a certain sadness that comes with looking back, at choices made, at relationships changed, at years that passed too quickly. But there's also acceptance. He's spoken about wanting to live more honestly, more intentionally, to focus on what matters most rather than what looks impressive from the outside. The world still sees a movie star. But behind that image is a man who has faced real struggles. At 62, his life isn't perfect. It isn't always glamorous. And it isn't as easy as people might think.